He hit his tee shot 100 yards left of where he intended. He walked into the thick fescue at Shinnecock Hills, removed the grass around his ball, and prepared to take relief. He dropped the ball once, and it rolled back toward the camera stand. He dropped it a second time, and it rolled back again. Under the rules of golf, that meant he was now permitted to place the ball by hand. So he placed it, in a clean, playable lie, on a tuft of grass with a clear swing at the green. He chipped on. He saved par. He walked to the 18th tee with his lead intact. Wyndham Clark did not break a single rule on that hole, not one. And that is precisely why the reaction was so severe. This is a story about the gap between what the rulebook permits and what the people watching are willing to accept. It is a gap that most professional golfers never fall into. Wyndham Clark keeps landing in it, over and over, and by the end of this, you will understand exactly why. Set the scene properly. This was the third round of the 2026 United States Open at Shinnecock Hills, and Wyndham Clark was in complete control of the golf tournament. He would finish the day at 7 under par with a 6-shot lead over 4 players, one of whom was Scottie Scheffler, the #1 player in the world. He was not scrambling. He was cruising. Then came the 17th. His tee shot flew wildly left, deep into the fescue, the punishing ankle-deep grass that is the entire defense of a links-style course like Shinnecock Hills. In an ordinary week, that ball is dead. You hack it out sideways, you make bogey, and you move on. But it did not come to rest in an ordinary place. It came to rest beside a camera stand. A camera stand is what the rules classify as a temporary immovable obstruction. It is a piece of broadcast equipment that has no business being on a golf course, and the rules do not punish a player for the presence of a television tower. So relief was granted. That part is uncontroversial and would have been granted to any of the 156 players in the field. What happened next is where the argument begins. Before dropping, Wyndham Clark removed loose grass from the area. That is legal. Loose impediments, cut grass, leaves, stones, twigs, may be removed almost anywhere on a golf course, and a player is entitled to clear them before taking a drop. Then he dropped the ball. It rolled back into the obstruction. The rules require the player to drop a second time. He dropped again. It rolled back again. And here is the mechanism that produced the outrage. When a ball dropped twice fails to stay in the relief area, the player is permitted to place the ball by hand on the spot where it landed on the second drop. The player is no longer at the mercy of gravity. The player now has control. So Wyndham Clark placed his ball, and he placed it well. Golf fans watching on television did not receive this calmly. On the platform X, one wrote that Wyndham Clark had hit his tee shot 100 yards left into a terrible spot, then intentionally dropped it so that it came back and he could perfectly place it, meaning there was essentially zero disadvantage for shanking a tee shot. Another asked simply what these rules even were. A third produced the line that stuck to the whole affair, saying that Wyndham Clark was going full lawn care service on that drop, and that it was egregious. The anger was not aimed only at the player. A great deal of it was aimed at the United States Golf Association, the body that governs the championship and writes the rules. One fan asked what exactly was being done here, pointing out that a player had picked up his ball for free relief, dropped in a way that moved it twice, then placed it, and now had a great lie. Here is the fact that almost none of that anger accounted for. Wyndham Clark did not break any rules at the United States Open. He was given relief from the obstruction, and he took it. Every step of that sequence, the removal of loose impediments, the 2 drops, the placement, followed the written procedure exactly. And the vast majority of his fellow professionals, placed in the same fescue beside the same camera stand, would have done precisely the same thing. It is not clever, it is not sharp practice. It is the rule. He chipped onto the green from his new lie, holed the putt, and saved par. So if he did nothing wrong on the 17th, Why was that drop only the second most discussed shot of the golf tournament? Because of the first one. The ninth hole is where the word cheating actually entered the conversation, and it entered from the crowd, not from an official. In the days after the championship, footage circulated widely on Reddit and on the golf account WonderPar showing Wyndham Clark taking practice swings in the thick fescue. On the ninth, the accusation was specific. Fans argued that those practice swings had flattened the grass around the ball, and that this was a breach of Rule 8.1. Rule 8.1 is one of the foundations of the sport. In plain language, it says a player must not improve the conditions affecting the stroke. That means you may not improve the lie of your ball, the area of your intended stance, or the area of your intended swing. It exists because golf is supposed to be played as you find it. A good drive earns a good lie, and a bad drive earns whatever the course gives you. And here is the uncomfortable part for Wyndham Clark. Practice swings absolutely can cross that line. A player is entitled to take a practice swing. A player is not entitled to use a practice swing to mow down the grass behind the ball. Where one ends and the other begins is a judgment call, and it is made in real time, in tall grass, on television. Now, the honesty this story requires. That was a fan accusation. It was not an official finding. No penalty was assessed on the ninth hole. The United States Golf Association did not rule against him. The footage is genuinely difficult to read. The fescue at Shinnecock Hills is dense enough that a club moving through it will always disturb it, which is exactly what makes the question so hard to settle. There is one more layer worth flagging, and flagging honestly. On Reddit, users claimed that after Wyndham Clark appeared on the podcast Pardon My Take, internet searches for his name alongside the word cheating began returning results about Baker Mayfield instead of the practice swing footage. And some users read that as a deliberate attempt to bury the moment. That is an unverified fan theory. It is not established fact, no evidence has been produced for it, and it should be treated as exactly what it is: speculation from a message board. To understand why so many people were prepared to believe the worst about a legal drop, you have to understand that this was not the first time, or the second, or the third. Go back to March of 2024 to the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill. Third round, 18th hole. Wyndham Clark drove into thick rough right of the fairway. A national broadcasting company camera zoomed in and showed him placing an iron in the grass behind his ball for 2 seconds. Both the grass and the ball moved. The broadcast erupted. Analyst Brad Faxon said on air that it did not look like only the weight of the club had been applied. Luke Donald said the player needed to be more careful. Later, on Golf Channel, Brandel Chamblee was blunt. The ball had clearly moved, and the club had clearly not been grounded lightly. He said he believed a penalty should have been assessed. The officials disagreed. The video was distributed to every member of the Rules Committee on site at Bay Hill, and the committee decided not to penalize him. Chief referee Ken Tackett explained that the committee had concluded the ball wobbled and returned to its original spot. And under the rules, a ball that oscillates and settles back has not moved. There was a second rule in play, and it matters enormously to this entire story. Rule 20.2c, adopted in 2017, states that if the facts shown on video could not reasonably have been seen with the naked eye, that video evidence is disregarded even if it indicates a breach. That rule exists to stop players being ruined by high-definition zoom lenses. It also means that a rules breach visible only to a broadcast camera is, formally, not a breach at all. Wyndham Clark was asked afterwards whether he thought his ball had moved. He said he had no idea it had even happened, that officials showed him the video in the scoring tent, and that neither the officials nor his playing partner Scottie Scheffler believed the ball had moved. "I wasn't trying to do anything like cheating," he said. 1 year later, March of 2025, and it was the Arnold Palmer Invitational again. Second round, third hole. His tee shot landed in the fairway, bounced, and rolled back into a pitch mark. he took free relief for an embedded ball. The problem is that you may only take relief from your own pitch mark. Rich Pearson, director of television rules and video for the Professional Golfers Association Tour, said on the broadcast that a player would not be entitled to relief from someone else's pitch mark. For a period, it genuinely appeared Wyndham Clark had taken a drop he was not owed. Then, the high-resolution cameras settled it. The ball had finished in its own original pitch mark. No penalty. Cleared again. His explanation afterwards was that his ball was covered with mud and plugged. So we took relief, didn't think anything of it, he said. Then came June of 2025, and Oakmont Country Club, and the incident that is not ambiguous at all. Wyndham Clark missed the 36-hole cut at the 2025 United States Open and destroyed the locker room. A photograph of the wrecked locker went around the world. Oakmont Country Club wrote to its members and informed them that he would no longer be permitted on the property, and that reinstatement would depend on full repayment for the damage, a meaningful charitable contribution, and the completion of counseling or anger management. He was, in the plainest sense, banned. And it was not isolated. A month before Oakmont, at the 2025 PGA Championship, he threw his driver and damaged a tee sign. He nearly hit a volunteer. So count the ledger. 5 incidents. On 4 of them, the grounded club in 2024, the pitch mark in 2025, the practice swing on the 9th, the drop on the 17th, he was either formally cleared or never penalized at all. On the 5th, he was banned from a golf club. That 5th one is why nobody gives him the benefit of the doubt on the other 4. Here is the half of the story that the outrage videos leave out entirely, and it is the half that is actually documented. He did everything he was told to do. Bob Ford, the professional emeritus at Oakmont Country Club and the first tee starter at the United States Open, spoke to Golfweek and put the rumors to rest. He said he would give the facts. Wyndham has done everything that was asked of him by both the United States Golf Association and Oakmont Country Club, he said. The lockers were repaired. Wyndham Clark paid for them. He made the charitable contribution, with the beneficiary being caddies. He completed anger management, which was done online. And he was given a condition. Bob Ford said Wyndham Clark was told that if he had another public incident of anger like that, he would not be permitted to compete at Shinnecock Hills. He did not have another incident. He competed. He won. There is a detail here that is almost too good to be true. When Oakmont Country Club finally repaired the locker over the winter, there was mesh left over. The club used that leftover mesh to build the trophies for its member guest tournament, the Spring Ringer, played on the 29th and 30th of May. The winners were handed miniature lockers. Bob Ford said members joked that they ought to bash one in and post it to Wyndham Clark. Bob Ford's own view was that Wyndham Clark had paid the price, that he wanted it behind him, and that the club had no interest in stirring the pot further. He said he hoped Wyndham Clark played well. Wyndham Clark's own framing, delivered after taking the 36-hole lead at Shinnecock Hills, was that he had received a great deal of criticism since the previous year, and that he deserved it, but that the locker room was not who he is. He said he hoped to win back the fans he had, and perhaps some new ones. In a television interview afterwards, holding the trophy, he described the whole year as his redemption tour. The crowd at Shinnecock Hills was not interested in redemption. Fans shouted at him to get in the bunker. Fans shouted at him not to choke, immediately after he struck a shot. A grandstand full of people erupted in celebration when he missed on the 7th. Spectators were removed from the golf course for it. Golfweek's David Dusek observed that between the behavior at the 2025 Ryder Cup and the booing of Wyndham Clark at Shinnecock Hills, it had not been a good year for New York golf crowds. Golf Monthly's Johnny Layfield wrote that the reaction was nothing short of a disgrace. His argument was straightforward. Wyndham Clark had been 7 strokes clear at one point, playing at a level nobody else in the field could approach. And great golf is great golf regardless of who is playing it. He drew the parallel to Brian Harman at the 2023 Open Championship at Royal Liverpool, where the crowd turned on a man simply for beating Tommy Fleetwood. Wyndham Clark's response to all of it was remarkably measured. "New York didn't really like me," he said, before adding that he understood it, that some of it was self-deserved, and that they were always going to root for Scottie Scheffler. He had prepared for the hostility in advance, working with his sports psychologist on a plan to replace every negative thing he heard with something positive. Meanwhile, the headlines wrote themselves. USA Today asked why everyone hated him. Golf Week reported that nobody wanted him to win the United States Open, and that he had won it anyway. The honest answer is more interesting than a manufactured one. On the 17th, no, not remotely. He was entitled to relief, he followed the procedure. And the outcome, a placed ball in a clean lie, is what the rule book produces. The anger belongs to the rule, not to the man. If you find that drop offensive, your quarrel is with the United States Golf Association, not with Wyndham Clark. On the 9th, contested, unresolved, and unpenalized. Fans saw a lie improve. No official ruled that one had. That is where the evidence stops, and anyone who tells you otherwise is filling a gap with a story. The reason it feels like cheating to so many people is Oakmont. Reputation is the lens through which every subsequent frame gets read. A man who has smashed a locker room does not get charitable interpretations of a favorable drop. That is not a rules matter. That is human nature. Which leaves the question the sport actually has to answer. Golf is the only game on earth where the players call penalties on themselves. The honor system is not decoration. It is the load-bearing wall. So what happens when a player stands entirely inside the rules every single time, and the watching world still feels cheated? What has he broken then, other than the mood? And is Wyndham Clark a cheat? A man playing the rules exactly as they are written? Or a golfer who made one genuinely bad mistake and has discovered he cannot outrun it?